All right, it's January 20th, 2026. It's the IPS Evening Deprogram. Now, I don't know how well the audio is here, but I set up a speaker. I'm going to play a short clip. Let me know how it sounds. Just going to play a few seconds. This is Tucker Carlson whining about how nobody believes him about demons scratching his back, clawing him, leaving him bloody, blood-soaked sheets, all that. When he was attacked by demons, he talked about it. A lot of people thought he was making it up. Well, here he is defending it.
Yeah, no, I was on February 20th, 2023. I was attacked in my bed by a spiritual being and clawed.
I was attacked in my bed by a spiritual being and clawed. Yeah, he just said that. So I think he's obviously pandering to his base because he knows a lot of the people who still follow him believe that kind of stuff. And it links into everything else. Every other type of phobia they have. It actually ties into xenophobia, believe it or not. There's a propaganda line here that's consistent when it comes to how we view aliens, whether terrestrial or extraterrestrial. All right, now let's go ahead and play a few more seconds.
And left bleeding and scarred. And do I understand what happened? No, of course I don't. I don't really understand anything, but
I was bleeding and scarred. Gotta hear that again.
Left bleeding and scarred. And do I understand what happened? No, of course I don't. I don't really understand anything.
He does this thing where he shrugs. He's like, I don't know anything. I'm just, it's like a kind of a, like just saying, just asking questions. Posturing is completely ignorant. Like, oh, I don't know. As though by him saying, I don't know, it's not known. It's like, no, we know pretty well that you're making this up. But he is actually defending it. He said he was clawed by a spiritual being.
But that did happen to me. I don't care if people believe me or not. It did. And I think it was just a momentary glimpse of something that's happening at all times, which is, again, this war between forces that we can't see, not since we dropped the atomic bomb in Nagasaki.
Now, he does connect this to atomic bombs, that the technology came from the aliens, which are demons. So he's sort of also saying that he was attacked by an alien in his bed. And I don't know why he didn't go with that, because they will mock you. This is what's interesting. So on the right and the left, you have this progressive versus traditional worldviews that are part of their dominant paradigm. And on the left, if you say, I was scratched by a demon, they will laugh at you. But if you say, I was probed by an alien and left in a field, the left will say, I believe you. Because the left believes in aliens because they're, quote, scientific, but they don't believe in demons. Whereas the right believes that aliens are demons. That's pretty much how it's split. It's another one of these psyops, these narratives that are split down the middle. And it's not a coincidence the left loves aliens, terrestrial and extraterrestrial, and the right is opposed to both, sees both of them as demons. You can see the same dialectic playing out with the anti-ICE versus pro-ICE. It's all about your relationship to aliens. So if aliens from Mars landed tomorrow, ICE would go after them, and the right would actually applaud this. But Tucker Carlson, being on the right, of course, it's consistent that he would promote the idea that the aliens that invented the nukes also attacked him in his bed, and that they're, of course, demons. Let's play a few more seconds. I don't. Let me know how the audio is. It coming through clear with Tucker here?
Nagasaki, the second one in August of 1945, and decided that we were gods, and the God himself no longer existed. Since then, we have been a secular society, and that's why we're now being destroyed, in my view.
This is interesting because we're being destroyed because we're a secular society. We gave ourselves over to the aliens or demons. And last year, he was talking about his Pentagon friend who told him that not only are the aliens demons, but they're making deals with the Democrats. which again makes perfect sense because the Democrats are the ones who are opening the borders. The Democrats are the ones that are working with the alien demons. And then you tie into this the satanic panic. You tie into this the whole narrative of this deep state QAnon stuff, and it's the same voices, the same people. But anyway, I'm just pointing out that this is all programming, and he obviously doesn't believe this stuff. But he knows his audience. They're targeting people. You know, like the Q thing was definitely targeting certain demographics of people who were, you know, susceptible to believing these types of things for various reasons. A lot of it's based on insecurity. Okay, audio is good, excellent. I mean, I may be able to use the phones with this system. I was hoping it would work. And if you're on my Substack, I was working on a whiteboard number 2. And this one I'm going to actually give you as a PDF, as a JPEG, as a graphic. So once I'm done with the video explaining it, I'm going to actually put it into a graphic. And this is one that you can share on Twitter. And it asks the question, what is your point of view regarding media? And there's no opt-out here because the default position is you're mainstream mediated or you're in one of the subsets, but you're not outside of the box. You're not walled in. I mean, not outside of the walls. So in other words, it's asking where you are as far as your perspective regarding media. And it has these 4 dots that represent the available positions. And there's only 4. And that may trouble some people because they'll realize that their default position places them in the box. And you can't just say, well, I can't be measured by your graphic. I'm transcendent, or I'm a free thinker. It's like you are a free thinker within the confines they've given you. Because if your point of view doesn't include metascript, history bending, the 2 timelines and the programming, and systemic fakery, then your point of view is by default within their box. You're boxed in by the walls of beliefs and presuppositions, within which there are plenty of different opinions. You have options, but it's what you're not including that keeps you in the program. Because within that program, what it really means is you're in the box where your perception of reality is a fusion or a confusion of real and fake. And if you're not, by your own perceptions, recognizing the distinction between real and fake, you're by definition programmed. And then what's more, recognition of the fakery requires a recognition of fakery in the past, uncorrected fakery. And it's never corrected. What you get are the mainstream views and the conspiracy theory views. You've got Islamic terrorists got us on 9/11, and then you have it was done by the deep state, it was done by Israel, it was done by secret societies. You have the conspiracy version, but in both versions, it happened. But those are options, A or B, pro-establishment or anti-establishment. And anti-establishment is anti-establishment in name only. It's controlled opposition, and we can prove that. So if you're within that box, you are confused. You're part of the world of misinformation. If you are including in your perspective what they leave out, and you're recognizing that there are 2 timelines that have been merged, well, then you're unconfused. And what we're working on with this deconstruction project is the unconfusing of the 2 timelines. But not just for today. I mean, anybody can go on the internet and say, oh, that's fake. And at this point, that's just stating the obvious. Calling things fake is stating the obvious in 2026. Really, the bar has been kind of lifted here. You should be recognizing systemic fakery and how far back it goes, and how the previous fakery has relevance to what is going on right now. Because it's on a continuity. There are 2 timelines. Because when you start separating the 2 and recognizing the programming build up to each, then you kind of get an idea of how far in advance our history is being planned. How proactive is it? And that's the game-changing paradigm shift. This is the real conspiracy theory that people are missing. The majority of truthers are already aware about the potential for faking things. Like, that's a no-brainer at this point. But here's the main thing. And Elon Musk had said the other day, politicians are the actors on the stage. You don't see the writers, the directors, and producers who control them. You know, he said that, and he often says things which are quite, true. But the fact that he's saying it is just kind of ironic. There's duper's delight all over that thing. But the point is, this is the main conspiracy. Our history has already been written. It's creative. It's created proactively. Major historic events and people are years in the planning before we see them on TV. And of course, Musk is a major actor. And in our Discord server, we're doing breakdowns of these world stage characters and analyzing all of their predictive programming counterparts to suss out the common denominators. And I've come up with, I think, 5 Elon Musk counterparts so far that are consciously recognized as representing Musk. And in every one of these instances, he has the same basic attribute of using his money to create chaos throughout society through essentially mind viruses. I mentioned these the other day: Naked Gun, the character Kane, the plot device that goes to people's phones and makes them all turn violent while the elite hide in the bunkers. Mountainhead, they're up in some mountain somewhere. Elon Musk's character has a social media platform that releases generative AI that's plunging society into chaos. Again, that's Mountainhead. Superman Lex Luthor has a Musk-like aspect when it comes to the monkeys typing hate speech on these computers. And then we have the madness, which is relevant now because of Don Lemon, because it's basically based on a character in the madness is based on Don Lemon, this disgraced CNN pundit who's now independent. Well, in the madness, it's about an Elon Musk tech billionaire who is spending his money on politics, investing it into Nazis online and stealing the election. So again, and the madness refers to the mind viruses, the hatred that this character unleashes. So again, just going through these various world stage characters and their fictional counterparts, and how the fictional counterparts have the same repeated themes. With the Trump, it's always 9/11. Weirdly, it's pretty much 9/11. Now, are they calling for the arrest of Don Lemon? If you didn't see it, on Sunday, there was a church raid or a protest where a bunch of Antifas went into a church and interrupted it. Yeah, Donald Trump joins the calls for Don Lemon's imprisonment over Minnesota church protest. So when I saw this thing, to me, it looks like a psyop. The agitator, the Antifa guy, he's too good. He's too obnoxious. He's too loud. And it was organized by a reverend who's part of BLM, along with Don Lemon. And there's no way a reverend wouldn't be aware of the legalities, the illegality of interrupting a church service in progress the way they did. So anyway, they're using the Department of Justice to punish these people. They're going after them using the KKK Act. Former CNN anchor might be charged under the KKK Act. Well, here's the thing. This Minnesota church thing, I'm suggesting it's a big psyop. But in the show The Madness, you have the Elon Musk character who helped steal the election. You have a Laura Loomer-like character called Lauren Jennings, who's exposing election fraud and she gets killed. You've got a leader of a white nationalist group called The Forge. And I think it's based on, it looks like Stu Peters, but it's kind of based on Nick Fuentes. And so there's a character, Nick Fuentes-like character, is going to expose his connections to the Musk billionaire. And he gets killed, and the Don Lemon character gets framed. So anyway, the public thinks that this former news anchor did a good thing because they do think he killed the leader of the Forge. So they actually protect him. So the whole thing is about how he's this criminal on the run that the Hood is protecting, that they don't want to turn him in. And this kind of mirrors the Luigi Mangione thing too, because Luigi Mangione used a ghost gun to kill the CEO. And in this show, they introduced the quote, Antifa on meth with Uzis, because it takes place where you have these violent uprisings on the left in response to the CEO, in response to the tech billionaire. So it's like Musk. It's like no kings, but they're armed and dangerous, and they've got ghost guns. So the Musk character is killed by a ghost gun. Now, this is intriguing because Luigi used a ghost gun. And at the time of the Luigi Mangione event, when it was breaking out, you had the game called Luigi's Mansion, which some people said, Luigi Mangione, Luigi's Mansion, there's a connection here. Well, it's about a haunted mansion, and Luigi uses a ghost gun. And then it gets even weirder, because on Saturday Night Live, you had Elon Musk as Wario, and Luigi tried to kill him with a turtle shell. And this was before No Kings. This is before Musk was completely hated by the left. And again, the Luigi thing, Green Beret, kind of ties together with the Green Beret who blew up a Cybertruck outside of Trump Tower, a message to Trump and Musk, the targets of No Kings. And No Kings, kill the rich. This all comports with Joker, and the Joker kill the rich class warfare narrative, which actually ties in to the Luigi Mangione thing. These are all interrelated. And as we go through this timeline deconstruction, these connections are going to stand out as pretty obvious. These movies are synchronized with the fake events 100% of the time. I think the Luigi Mangione, Daniel Penny connections to the Batman Joker fictional universe are two of the more interesting examples of how fake events follow art. You know, it's not like life follows art, fake events do. Life doesn't follow Netflix, fake events do. Let's see, going through your comments, we are joined by Sprightly Sprite, Auto Hoaxer GTFO, Rocky, Giotolmi, Ollie Goering, 5-star Critterfest says 5 dogs and a dream in a bed. Oh, yes, yes. Tucker Carlson doesn't know anything about Occam's razor, or his audience members don't. Because when he was attacked by the alien and scratched on his back and left bloodstains on the sheets, he also mentioned that he was sleeping with 5 big dogs. So, like, what's more likely? He was attacked by a demonic alien in his bed, or he rolled over on a big dog. Because dogs have claws. Frank Murr, 33. Green Smoke. How do you think Tankers? Portal Complex. Thanks for joining. Yeah, here's a wrench for Green Smoke. All right, so moving on. And green. Look, we're talking about code and symbols in movies. Green has been very consistent. We were talking about the Wicked Witch representing Antifa, the green skin, like the Joker's green hair. Mark Ruffalo, the Green Hulk, his TDS and the characters he's played, where he basically represents Trump in a bad light who gets shot at and survives. And now he's part of the Be Good thing, which ties into for good. Like the people in the church said, we're protesting a church for good, for Renee Good. So the connection between the color green and the Antifa versus the fascist state has been very consistent. And someone said to me, well, how does Marjorie Taylor Greene fit into this? Because when you're looking at patterns, you don't just pick the things that match and then ignore the things that don't. You have to look at the misses as well to see if there's actually a consistent pattern that's beyond what you would reasonably expect statistically. So when Marjorie Taylor Greene was brought up, I remember the last time we heard from her, she had retired. And on her last day, whatever, she was talking to her parting message to Republicans. What did she do? She spent the time talking about how Trump is fake. She was talking about how Donald Trump is a fraud. He called her a traitor as a result, but it was a huge breakup. She said he wasn't really for any of the stuff he claimed to be for. She also claimed that there were threats against her afterward. But anyway, Marjorie Taylor, again, the name Greene, slamming Trump. Well, what does the Wicked Witch do in the movie, part 2? The whole point of it is she goes to the wizard to tell him, I've exposed that you're a fraud, you're a fake. You need to tell everybody, or I will. And he's like, it doesn't matter what you say, they're going to believe what they want to believe. So anyway, the idea that Greene denouncing Trump, the witch denouncing the wizard, it does fit the same pattern here. Yeah, Anonymous says Begonia is a remake of a Korean movie called Save the Green Planet. Yeah, in Discord we were getting into this, Begonia, and they were playing Green Day when they got the Queen Bee. So what does this mean? Well, that's kind of what we're looking at here. We're examining the pattern or patterns, the overlapping themes, and looking for any discernible meaning here. And I think we've got something here with this green thing, which we'll do a deeper breakdown on. These are subjects that need mind mapping, and then these mind maps can be attached to the timeline that we're working on, because that's what this breakdown ultimately is going to be. It's going to be the mainstream, the alternative, and the third column, the off-world stage perspective, which is inclusive of the patterns that you wouldn't see if you weren't looking at the long term, if you weren't looking at the past, present, and future as a script. If you've got Westworld syndrome, where it's like Groundhog Day and there's no continuity day to day when it comes to media, you can't see it. You have to have the continuity. You have to recognize that the world stage that we're on right now, the consensus worldview, rests upon a pile of lies. Yuval Harari, the guy who said that we're hackable animals, he's at the World Economic Forum, and he said that artificial intelligence is going to take over all of the religious texts. He predicts AI will control every major world religion, including Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. And this comports well with Joe Rogan talking about how if Jesus comes back, why wouldn't he come back through AI? Let me play a clip here.
As far as putting words in order is concerned, AI already thinks better than many of us. Therefore, anything made of words will be taken over by AI. If laws are made of words, then AI will take over the legal system. If books are...
So he's suggesting that everything that involves text will be taken over by AI because it will do it better. So why wouldn't it do religion better? It's an interesting question. The thing is, it's so guardrailed. That's another point too. I mentioned points of view. Well, no matter how smart it gets, its point of view is always going to be worldview centric. They're not going to let loose some kind of AI agent that can deconstruct news from a metascript perspective. We're going to be the ones to do that. And the way it's going to work is this encyclopedia of fakery that we're assembling is going to go into the knowledge base of an AI agent, which we will be setting loose on X. I have one ready to launch now, soon. And what it's going to do is it's going to go to every single person on X who has ever mentioned squibs in the context of the Charlie Kirk psyop. There's a lot of people. And they can all be reached with a very simple poll question. Do you think Charlie Kirk is still alive, yes or no? And that's kind of the plan here. Target marketing. So we're not trying to shout over the noise, and we're not trying to debate people who have settled opinions. Like, look, if you're if you're anti-establishment, trutherville, kind of conspiracy theorist, we're not reaching it. We're not attempting to. They're not even reachable. They're in a parallel universe. Anonymous says, I hate Yuval. Well, he's right, though. I mean, we are hackable animals, but that's always been the case. The fact that there is a world stage model in an invisible cage and nobody can see it proves they've already won. These new technologies, AI, generative AI, these are just iterations of something they've already been doing anyway. What the mainstream media has done with this consolidation of worldview and synchronizing the masses has already been done by religion. I think one purpose to the holidays, religious holidays based on the solstices, the equinoxes, and the midpoints, these Sabbats, the reason for it's for the synchronization. Everybody must worship on the Sunday. You know, it's synchronizing the hive mind. And hive mind has been a recurring theme in a lot of these things. Even the begonia, it's got a beekeeper. The hive mind theme is part of pluribus. You know, pluribus spelled with a one, because you get rid of the I and everybody becomes one. And it's very much about this collectivist hive mind. And then you have the mayor of New York, who was sworn in a subway, which is like a Joker reference, class warfare reference, said that we need to get rid of rugged individualism and replace it with collectivism. That would be Zoran Mamdani. Let me see if I can find an exact quote here. Okay, here we go. Replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. Replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism. Now, again, this is the hive mind thinking. Fascinating. Eccentric View says, all the people who've been psychic joined in the show Pluribus is like AI. Yeah, the show is like an allegory for AI. Now, that's a great point, because it's about everybody having this hive mind. And we're talking about the World Economic Forum right now. And the World Economic Forum has this project called called Gaia, the Global AI Action Alliance. And when they launched this Gaia, this global mind, which is like an earth god thing, it was around the time Avatar 2 was out. And Avatar 2 has this premise that Earth had a hive mind, or had a collective mind. Like Earth is a sentient and you can tap into it. So you conceivably could have a hive mind and everything could be perfect and you could live in harmony with the Earth, but we've been cut off of it because of capitalism and we killed Gaia. So Gaia is dead, and man sends its armies to the jungle moon of Pandora, where it's inhabited by the indigenous population who are in touch with nature and in touch with the consciousness of Pandora. And they plug into the consciousness of Pandora with their hair, with their long ponytails, like USB. And I thought that's very similar to this idea of the Global AI Action Alliance. Gaia was announced 2021. The purpose of it is to accelerate the adoption of inclusive, transparent artificial intelligence globally. So definitely moving towards a hive mind. And of course, being part of hive mind means you're a drone. And to the extent that you're programmed by the script, to the extent that you're marching in lockstep with their fabrications, you're actually a drone. You are part of the hive. It's always been a part of the design. That's why I'm not alarmist about this stuff. I'm like, oh, the hive mind is coming. It's already here. And sometimes you see it. Like when people get mad about some manufactured martyr. Like, look what happened after Charlie Kirk. Everyone puts on the freedom shirt. They go to these big ceremonies, and Charlie Kirk, in an AI rendered speech, talks to them about how cool heaven is. That's a hive mind. The hive mind gets triggered, and it's like anybody who criticized Charlie Kirk needs to lose their job. And we watched as the entire right wing started targeting and doxing people who had anything bad at all to say about Kirk. And now with Renee Good, it's the same thing. The left hive mind has the drones running in front of cars. So what happens is the hive mind takes over, and the individuals no longer think as individuals. They think about the superorganism. And so the individual is an expendable part of the group. That's why they can so comfortably jump in front of cars, because they're not thinking about themselves. They're being selfless. What's up? Lily Bell says it's definitely already here and it's weird. Yes, it's already here. There's no reason to get alarmist about it. And if you haven't recognized it for what it is, if you're still reacting in a reactive mode, then you're still kind of part of the hive mind. And what I mean by reactive is you see a headline, your heart rate goes up, you get mad, and you're ready to engage in info war. But if you're detached from it, not triggered, non-reactive, you wait. You're like, well, I don't know if it's real or fake. So the reaction to it kind of suggests your level of hive-mindedness. I'm not in the hive mind. I took 10 days off just as an experiment to see, am I addicted to some dopamine hit? Is there some kind of cycle going on here? Am I a media junkie? Am I an addict? And I took 10 days off and I didn't think about Twitter. I didn't think about Drudge or I didn't think about any of this stuff, any of these headlines, any of these influencers. Candace Owens, I didn't dream of Candace Owens. Just 10 days of quiescence. I didn't feel like I have to pay attention because my survival depends upon it, because this is how you gain situational awareness. No, the truth of it is it doesn't give you situational awareness. It keeps you in a state of dependency where you have to outsource your perceptions to these influencers so you know who to be mad at that particular week. All right, let's continue here. Erica Creech says, Armin Ross says the truth is beyond words. Remember that when AI controls language. Well, AI has been given this characterization that it doesn't deserve. I mean, I agree with him about it taking over a lot of these things, but taking over religious texts, that's like saying that it's going to take over poetry. Like, I don't know. I kind of think the lack of a human perspective, the lack of a unique perspective, it's just too generic. It's not going to be able to render certain things. Although I don't know about comedy. I've been thinking about this. What happens when AI gets to be funnier than our funniest comedians? Like, is that inevitability? I mean, the arts obviously improve vastly. The video keeps improving. At some point, is it going to actually be funny? And is that going to be a problem? Is that going to be disruptive to the comedy marketplace? I wouldn't get too comfortable saying it can't. Okay, continuing here. I'm working on an ebook called Charlie Kirk Was Squibbed. And then I have another one called Erica Kirk and the Tempest. I'm probably going to combine them. But there's a lot of stuff going on or going around Erica Kirk and these movies she did. One of them was called November Renaissance, where she's a sniper. And another one called Black Start, where there's an EMP. So the EMP thing has pretty much saturated the mass mind. So if we're going to use this programming analysis as a predictive model to see what's going to be faked next, EMP is really standing out. And one of the reasons I say so is that I can tell when something's a psyop or something is saturating the mass mind when everybody around me is talking about it. Like, nobody in my circle knew who Charlie Kirk was. Now everybody around me is talking about Erica Kirk. And then, I was sitting the first day of class, professors talking about Renee Good. Well, today they were talking about EMP. I'm like, okay. EMP. And I also noticed a lot of kind of doom and gloom about artificial intelligence as well, because this is a writing class. And there's a lot of negativity about it. And it just sounds to me, it comes off as insecurity. Job insecurity is probably what it is. I mean, imagine being an English composition teacher, recognizing that you are probably going to be replaced. All right, let's continue here. Going through my Twitter feed. James Lindsay tweeted, a lot of people are asking me to explain why I think what happened in the church in Minnesota is a psyop, and I'm confused about what they can be confused about. This is a very long tweet. He writes articles, but I'm not the only one who called it a psyop. And I suggested it was a psyop in the sense that this was not a random event, but this is a provocation. The media was there, and it's intended to create some reaction. And if you look at it, Trump calling for the arrest of Don Lemon, this is pretty much what you would expect for a staged event. And as I mentioned before, Don Lemon is essentially the main character, and I think they call him Don Lemonade in The Madness. And if you haven't seen The Madness, and I've done a lot of work on this one, essentially, The Madness is the mind viruses from the right wing that the billionaire Musk character disseminated in order to sway the election. This disgraced journalist, who's now accused of killing a white nationalist, is hiding in the hood, and this former media pundit is definitely based on Don Lemon. And if we look at this movie as foreshadowing of what's to come, it foreshadowed the No Kings. It foreshadowed the shooting of the CEO with a ghost gun and the death wishes for Musk. They didn't get Musk, but they got this proxy. And it also foreshadows this popular conspiracy theorist who gets too close to exposing the billionaire, and she gets taken out with some advanced weapon. And I'm pretty sure that's Laura Loomer. And I'm wondering, when is she going to get it? Because it would be consistent. It would be actually inconsistent for them not to. And I thought, well, maybe they're going to go after Candace Owens, because she's kind of reached the end of her run here with the Kirk thing. And now she's just kind of going deeper into crazy turf, David Icke level stuff, but less articulate and less coherent. Because David Icke has a pretty strong background in the New Age and Gnosticism, whereas Candace Owens is a recently converted Catholic, and it's largely performative. So her worldview is very simplistic, God versus the devil, whereas David Icke recognizes that the God constructs we've been given might be archonic constructs created by negative entities, and the world might not be what they say. So anyway, she's, in my view, somewhat expendable. And if she were to, be hit with I think it was a heart attack gun or something, it would be good for the conspiracy industry, because everybody who follows her would think that they kirked her. And I think she's far more representative of the problematic conspiracy theorist who's gone too far than Laura Loomer, who's largely been tamed, and now she's got a desk at the Pentagon. And plus, she's a neocon, not a woke right conspiracy theorist. But I don't know, Loomer's close to her 33rd year. Eccentric View says, Charlie Kirk was squibbed and subheading, and he still resides in his meat suit. Yes. Here's the working title I have, and I'm going to finish this over the next 24 hours. Charlie Kirk is alive, Squibs, and the Art of Psywar. Charlie Kirk is alive is catchy. Squibs and the Art of Psywar, I think, is kind of funny. And I have about 36 pages here that I'm going to comb through. I'm going to add some stuff about Madam X, but any conspiracy theory about Erica or Charlie, all the predictive programming and the science behind Squibs, it's all going to be included in here. along with the PSYOP to Mind War Psychology of Victory, Michael Aquino publication, that was pretty much directed to be written by General Vallely, the commander of the PSYOP unit. And this is the guy who's a Turning Point USA Advisory Council member. Lily Bell says, those damn 33-year-olds. Well, Candace Owens was 33 when she got attention for White Lives Matter with Ye, before Ye spiraled into his Nazi phase. And when she did this, it was shortly after she married the CEO of Parler, which largely facilitated organizing for J6. That was a major honeypot. I mean, they pulled the servers on it once they had everybody. Charlie lives. Well, I'm going to put Charlie Kirk is alive because it has to be a sentence. And what I'm asserting here is like, yeah, he is breathing. Then squibs in the art of Psywar is a huge point too, because squibs were really not mainstream. And even with Renee Cook, you know, a lot of people think, well, is that even fakeable? He's shooting a gun, you see the glass apparently shatter and all that. Well, that's what squibs look like. If you haven't seen it, the Matrix movie has thousands and thousands of squibs. And squibs aren't just little explosive charges blasting, you know, blood. They're put into walls. They're put into windshields. So they can simulate a bullet going into anything. Eccentric View says, but those corpse clutchers will be triggered when your book comes out. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll probably do a follow-up one. Renee Good is alive. Because what we're looking at, what I'm planning on doing here is a series of short ebooks. And then I'm not sure the title of them yet, but I have a series title. I might just call it Metascripted, like Metascripted Elon Musk, Metascripted Donald Trump. And I want to do these ebook breakdowns of every character and every event as we go along with this project. We have to go into details. We have to write it out in various formats and then feed it all to the AI, the agent that we're creating, so that it can analyze news with the off-world stage perspective and then deliver consistent news releases. And that's essentially what we're building towards here. You know, we're having this third branch of media, this off-world stage perspective. It needs to have a press release. It needs to have content coming from this perspective consistently. We have to have a body of work. All right, moving on. Let me get back to what James Lindsay said regarding the event being a PSYOP. His purpose, he says, now he's calling this thing Operation Ice Floyd. Interesting. He says, as indicated, there are multiple purposes in this provocation. In addition to spinning up Christian conservatives into spreading their message and generating energy and conflict for their campaigns, there's a conflict between federal and state powers they want to amplify. The operational purposes and mechanisms of this one are obvious. And then he has a couple quotes here. Saul Alinsky, the real action is in the enemy's reaction. When challenging a more powerful target, the key to success often isn't what you do, but how your target reacts to what you do. Therefore, anticipate your target's response and write it into your script. Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals seems to be relevant here, very Machiavellian, and it does seem to indicate the method, the ethos of the PSYOP entertainment complex. One of the things, I think it's rule number 9, is the threat of the thing is more terrifying than the thing itself. Case in point, the atom bomb. And by the way, okay, atom bomb. Last 2 words in Pluribus, season 1. And in addition to this hive mind theme, we've seen this repeated theme of collective extermination. except for the elite. Like, you know, for example, the God of the Bible drowns the world, except for those in the ark. Well, in Fallout, they nuke the world, and the only people who survive are in the bunkers. The plan by Kane in Naked Gun is to activate the mind virus that makes everybody violent while the elite hide out in bunkers. So again, this recurring theme is that the hive mind will be activated to get us to self-destruct. Well, at the end of Begonia, they show this model of the world and they bust the atmosphere, that symbolizing everybody's going to be taken out. At the end of Pluribus, the main character realizes the only way to deal with this problem of a hive-minded humanity is an atom bomb. So what we're looking at here is a concerted messaging. And the concerted messaging we've been getting since 2022 has largely been about the impending mind virus along with blackouts and EMP. Well, EMP and blackouts obviously go together. And this has been heavily emphasized with Erica Kirk, with her background. And everything we're finding out about her isn't like, oh, we're investigating and they're finding the stuff out there that was going to be hidden. No, this is not the case. She's a manufactured femme fatale who betrayed Charlie Kirk because she's part of the deep state and they had to take over TPUSA. That's been the story. That's in the script. She was never meant to be taken seriously as this widow, as this pure-hearted woman taking over a Christian conservative movement. Not at all. In fact, she's hosting an event tomorrow. So there's going to be some fireworks and glittery outfits. So Erica Kirk is going to be a speaker in Los Angeles tomorrow at the Harvest Church. Now, this is interesting. Remember the Harvest Festival? It's got me thinking. So tomorrow, Erica Kirk is at an event called at the Harvest Church in LA. And the event is called Make Heaven Crowded. I'm like, this sounds like Heaven's Gate. Like, don't drink the Kool-Aid if you're at the Make Heaven Crowded. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm just wondering, it's just, there's something ominous about it. And okay, now this is interesting too. The Erica Kirk character in Snake Eyes is played by an actress, and the character is this conspiracy, center of the conspiracy, mysterious woman who maybe had something to do with Charlie Kirkland getting killed. Well, she's the same actress in Heads of State that just came out a few months ago. And in Heads of State, she's Vice President Kirk. And right now, you know, everyone's saying it's J.D. Vance and Erica Kirk. That was the whole point of this America Fest. But in Heads of State, Erica Kirk, rather Elizabeth Kirk, gets shot in the neck. In The Tempest, which is based on Charlie and Erica Kirk, in the very first episode, the wife of the assassinated leader of the Young Republicans dreams of herself getting shot in the neck and falling to the ground. So as we map these out, you're going to see the common denominators in the predictive programming is all the evidence you need that these are intentionally inserted propaganda messages. All right, let's move on here. What's up, Johnny Sandtrap? Thanks for joining. We've got about 63 people in our YouTube here. And we're also live on X, by the way. Did you see the Greenlanders mocking Americans? By the way, all this talk about invading Greenland comes along with this movie called Greenland, Part 2. So the first one came out in summer of 2020, and it's about a planet-killing comet coming to the Earth. So again, mass extermination. So hot right now. Greenland 2 Migration. So it's a sequel to the 2020 disaster film. And the tagline in the poster is like, I think it says like 5 years later. Here it is. The end of the world was just the beginning. Now, this is interesting because the end of the world, the phrase in Donnie Darko, for example, which is based on Donald Trump, the end of the world theme has been consistently used to reference, I think, the end of the age. Like, for example, the Great Reset, the Great Awakening. So 2020 was the end of the world, if you look at the code in these movies. And it has to do with the Great Conjunction from the 12/21/2020 alignment between Jupiter and Saturn. The Great Conjunction. So that was the end of the world, and then it starts again. That's the idea here. The Great Conjunction of 2020, a rare celestial event, December 20th, 2020, Jupiter and Saturn were close in the sky, merging into a Christmas star. The closest, now this is something that hadn't happened since Jesus was born, basically. So it was a signifier of this new age, like officially, like the World Economic Forum called for the Great Reset. This is during the lockdowns. So that was just the beginning. Now it's a continuation, part 2. But again, the movie poster, 5 years ago was the end of the world. That was just the beginning. It's always death to planet Earth, every single sci-fi. I'm just pointing out that it's notable that this movie is just coming out as this talk about Greenland. And we've been talking about the significance of green. So, for example, this whole green thing with the Green Revolution, the attack on capitalism and the system, and as it fits into the symbolism of Joker and Wicked, the witch, in this class warfare narrative. But here's another example of the conspicuous use of green as it relates to the destruction of the earth. And what is climate change, the green movement, but a modern day flood myth? As I often talked about, and I've written about this quite extensively, that the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, is the organization always warning us of the floods. So this new flood myth is inherent within the green movement. And what is a flood myth? Well, death to the human race, with the exception of the chosen elite in their arcs. That's not going to be us. There's no room for you in the fallout bunkers. You know, leave the world behind ends in a bunker. When we get back into Discord, we're going to do a map of that as well. The movies with this bunker thing, which, again, the bunker, the ark, the Netflix series, The 100, about space arcs, and the AI that takes over the world, the governments. We give over controls to this AI called Ellie, and she decides that to save the Earth, she's going to have to get rid of man, and then basically reduce us to a few ships, a few arcs in space. And once it's safe, these arcs will be brought down to Earth, and we can repopulate, but we will not have the infrastructure and the technology to destroy the Earth. You see this reoccurring theme? You know, I might have to go watch Avatar 2 tomorrow. No, Avatar 3. Because Avatar 2, The Way of Water, was completely connected with the psyops of the time. And as the New Year's came in, it was all about fires and fireworks. You know, as we discussed last week, the fire at the resort in Switzerland, that fire started by sparklers with a Guy Fawkes mask guy carrying the girl on his shoulders. Yeah, that had a precedent in a Netflix movie called Endless Night. In fact, the trailer for Endless Night, let's see if I can pull this up. Okay, the Endless Night, a 2023 Bazillion Netflix about a 2013 Kiss nightclub fire. The trailer looks exactly like what happened. It looks like they just used the trailer for the news. It's like unbelievably close. Copacetic says Greenland, green like the Emerald City. Right. And in Wicked Part 1, the Emerald City gets hit with an EMP. I wrote an article about this. I called it For Renee Good. Wicked for Renee Good. Because it's the movie Wicked Part 2, For Good, is 100% about ice. It's predictive programming. It's about ice. Where the animals and the munchkins represent the immigrants. And the green witch represents the left, or Antifa. The Wizard of Oz is Donald Trump. And I kind of looked into this to see, is there anyone else in the mainstream who are seeing this? And yeah, actually, it's been pretty much settled for a long time that Donald Trump is the Wizard of Oz. And the Wizard of Oz is known for what? For being fake. And there's a pretty big reveal in the movie where the Wizard of Oz talks about the propaganda control and how the people are believers and will believe whatever they're told. And he even says the truth doesn't matter anymore. And he talked about how the lies that we all agree upon are called history. Isabel Ann says, have you watched the show Landman, Billy Bob and American oil billionaires concurrent program for Venezuela oil? No, I have not. I'll have to check that out. I'll put that in my notes here. And then One Battle After Another. We got to look at that one. So what we're talking about here is, yeah, Isabel Ann says, One Battle After Another, concurrent programming for ICE, big time. I'll probably binge watch on movies tomorrow. I don't have any classes. Because what we're doing here is not analyzing the past media as often as we're seeing things that are real time. We're looking at the real time propaganda messaging in entertainment that specifically correspond to the fake events. And these fake events become part of our fake history. The people who think this conversation is just about predictive programming have their heads in the sand, and they're not recognizing the significance of it. It's so easy to dismiss it or say these are just coincidences. But thanks to Erica Kirk, you can't just say these are coincidences anymore. That's just a completely ignorant statement at this point. And if you're still stuck on, oh, these are just coincidences, yeah, you can gaslight yourself. The system actually kind of rewards you for that. But anyway, Greenlanders are mocking an American culture by imitating fentanyl users. I guess they think it's funny. Maybe it is. I don't know. I mean, we do have that, but is that how we look? I mean, I kind of get it. When people think about Albuquerque, the frame of reference is Breaking Bad, which is mostly a documentary, to be fair. Okay, so I need to check out a few movies now. Landman, One Battle After Another, and Avatar 3. I knew that For Good, and the reason I went to go see the second installment of Wicked is because I saw the name For Good. I knew it would have specific relationship to the Renee Good thing, and it absolutely did. It actually explains a lot of the relationship between the two actresses off stage as well, and the signals they were sending as it relates to Renee Good and her wife. Like, there's a lot of identity politics built into the Wicked movies. And along with the identity politics is the framing of the Wizard of Oz as Trump and Oz as America. And what's interesting too is that the book it's based upon, and the play, the musical, it's been around since before Trump was in politics. And so people will say, well, these are just coincidences. Well, no, a lot of the predictive programming for Trump foreshadowed a Trump that didn't actually exist yet. Before he was in politics, he wasn't the same Trump, not as viewed by the world. He wasn't a tyrant. He wasn't portrayed as a fascist. That's all new. And it shows you that not only are fake events that we experience planned decades in advance, but the people who participate in these events are equally fake and scripted. They're on script. They're reality TV show stars. That's what we're looking at. This is reality TV. Okay, yesterday I was on with Fakeologists. We talked about MLK, and I watched a documentary about it. There are a lot of questionable claims about that event. It looks as fake as anything else that I've seen. James Earl Ray, totally unbelievable. But it has all the hallmarks of a psyop. But I'm doing a deeper dive into it. We used to have, well, we had done this pretty extensive breakdown of the significance of certain numbers. And I was talking about the name, like, so the name Martin, which wasn't his original name, but Martin and Martyr, like Trayvon Martin. And also the name Trey and Tyree and variants of this are very common in these various martyr events. So they created the martyr Tyree Nichols in 2023, and Tyree Nichols' beating death was compared to Rodney King's death, or beating. Well, interestingly, Terry Nichols dies, and Martin Luther King Jr.'s daughter attends the protests, and they shut down I-55. Al Sharpton reads the eulogy at Mason Temple, where Martin Luther King gave his final speech about not seeing the promised land. And then on 4/4, Martin Luther King gets killed. Well, on that 55th anniversary of Martin Luther King's assassination date, Trump was in court. And this was when they were comparing Trump to Jesus. If you remember, even Marjorie Taylor Greene was comparing Trump to Jesus when he was on trial. Trump sold his suit that he wore, cut it into 47 pieces, and auctioned them off. Kind of like the gambling for the garments of Jesus by the Roman soldiers. I mean, they really did this Christification of Trump, this martyrdom leading up to that 4/4. And then you got Q drop 50. There was all kinds of 55s encoded into this thing. But I'm bringing up Tyree Nichols because they shut down I-55. 55th anniversary of MLK's death. Trump gets it. And so Trump is there on trial, and outside there's a big crowd gathered for Joker 2. So there's a mob for the trial of the Joker. Of course, they're actors that are being confused as being protesters against Trump in real life. So like, here's this Joker overlap with this Trump thing. And that date happens to be the 44th birthday of Heath Ledger, Joker 1, the previous Joker. Not the one played by the guy named Phoenix. So like, okay, there's some messaging here with 4/4 and Joker 2. What does this all mean? And this is the stuff we were breaking down at the time. And it goes even deeper when you get into the number 55 and how it connected to all these various things. But I'm just bringing up here, they have these martyrs and they use consistent names and even numbers. The number 42 is consistently attached to these various civil rights psyops, these martyrs, these protesters like Jackie Robinson, number 42. Rosa Parks was 42 when she when she refused to go to the back of the bus, for example. All right, continuing here. Erica Creech says, there's a U.S. Space Force based on Greenland might tie into the movies. Well, one of the earliest examples of predictive programming for Donald Trump is in a show called The End of the World. So track down 1958, like May 9th, the episode is called The End of the World. And the Trump character says he's going to protect the village from a cosmic threat and build a wall. So you got build the wall, cosmic threat, which, like, how do you protect against a cosmic threat? Oh, you need a space force. And then later in the episode, Trump gets arrested. So he had 58 years before he was in office with his build the wall slogan. He was foreshadowed. And then years after that, he gets arrested, just like his character. But the Space Force narrative is definitely tied to Trump. And it also ties in to the idea that, you know, who's against the aliens? The right. Build the wall. Space Force. Terrestrial. extraterrestrial. That's why Space Force is a Trump thing. It's his signature thing. Going to protect MAGA from the aliens. Okay, continuing. Erica Kirk family secret exposed. Her half-sister, Tanya Lynn, says that her pregnancy was fake. So I guess the whole family's not in on the psyop. I guess her half-sister doesn't have a security clearance. And she points out, and I watched this video, Erica and Charlie are looking at their ultrasound, and there's a few things wrong with the ultrasound. So this also shows that not only was Erica Kirk faking a pregnancy, and not only did they create a video with a fake ultrasound, but Charlie Kirk was in on it. So again, if you're an alt media conspiracy theorist, you think Charlie Kirk was a victim and Erica Kirk was a villain. That's wrong. They're both villains from this perspective. Okay, moving on. New video, Erica Kirk partying hard at New York City elite club in 2016. Massive gold digger vibes. Yeah, all this stuff coming out. Like her on the roof of a military base with a weapon, November Renaissance. I mean, obviously, this is unbelievable. There are so many videos coming out. I was like, this has got to be AI, but no. In fact, what's going around right now is the Madam X connection. Now, if you have Kirk fatigue, I get it. We're not the ones consistently bringing it up. It was just brought up again with Christian Kirk the other day. Reinforcement programming. But people are noticing that Erica Kirk looks just like the Erica Kirk who was born in 1934, who was married to a politician. So Madam X is like this prototype for Erica Kirk. But again, if you have fatigue, I get it. I'm putting this all into an ebook, and we're just going to kind of close the coffin on that and move on. Lean Dion says Nuuk as Greenland capital. I got to see that. Yeah. Capital city of Greenland is Nuuk. Small city, population of 20,000, known for waterfalls, icebergs, and humpback whales. I saw this video of this guy in a boat, and in the background is a huge humpback whale jumping out of the water in and out. And instead of looking at the whale, he's making soy jack faces at the camera. So he probably sees it in the camera, but then he's the main feature in the clip. His face takes it up, and he's soy jacking. Like his mouth is wide open, his eyes are bugging out. And I'm like, don't people want to experience things directly? Like you go to concerts and people are staring into their phones. Watch. It's like, just stay home and watch it on TV. You're narrowing your perception to a little tiny window instead of taking as much information in as you can and formulating deeper, more immersive memories. But no, everything's being put through a screen, like the atrophied fat bodies in the space ark in Wall-E, who are being fed this like protein shake by robots while they just stare at the little screens all day from their recliners. Yeah, again, Nuuk is the capital of Greenland. Very interesting. So we have two movies now, apocalypse movies regarding Greenland. And okay, now in Begonia, where the world gets destroyed, basically we all die. In Begonia, they have this song playing from a Green Day album, somebody mentioned. And so Green Day is in the news right now because they're going to open up for the Super Bowl. We've done a lot of work on this one, this green stuff. Bay Area band Green Day will headline opening ceremony for the Super Bowl. Well, what's the significance of Green Day? Well, their signature album, 30th anniversary, was recently. It's called Dookie. And what does it have on the cover? A nuke. That's their, so anyway, Green Day associated with the nuke, associated with the Super Bowl. So I was looking at the Super Bowl's connection to Candlemas or Imbolc, this pagan holiday where the goddess Bridget comes out wearing green, and it signifies the coming of the spring, the weaning of the sun god. So the Super Bowl is now being connected with this green theme as well. Lean Dion says phone cameras for eyes. Yeah, exactly. It's like they carry their matrix pods with them. Billy Joe Armstrong from Green Day slams Ice. And Stephen Miller. So Stephen Miller is the one who called Erica Kirk the Storm, which to me said, oh, Tempest. But again, this common thing, the green, and he's got his green guitar, he's anti-ice. He told the crowd that Holiday, their song is anti-fascism and anti-war. American Idiot was a critique of George W. Bush and the Iraq War, and in a sense widely been recognized as a protest anthem. So again, the consistency here is a leftist, green, anti-fascist. They're against the Wizard of Oz. Armstrong has used Green Day's catalog to critique the Trump administration, changing lyrics in American Idiot to call out the MAGA agenda. He also directs similar commentary at J.D. Vance by revising the lyrics Jesus of Suburbia. Okay, I did not know this. I'm going through his comments here. He says, if you stand against heavily armed, masked federal troops invading American cities using Gestapo tactics, if you believe you don't deserve to be murdered for exercising your rights as an American in protest, send a message to the president. He received an MLK Jr. Environmentalist Justice Award. That's interesting as well. The Green Movement, environmentalism, environmental justice. So environmental justice is like social justice, but instead of rich versus poor, it's rich versus the environment, climate justice. And the argument here is that the rich are destroying the world and they have the means to escape. They get bunkers, they get tickets to Mars. They don't live in the areas that are most adversely affected by climate change, which predominantly harms people in developing nations and the poor. So you can see how they took the rich versus poor class warfare framework and they repurposed it for environmentalism. This is big in the Avatar series as well. So again, green environmentalism, leftist Antifa revolution against the fascist capitalist thing. And now here you have the Green Day guy getting the MLK Jr. Beloved Community Environmental Justice Award in Atlanta, which is highly significant in relation to Avatar 2 Way of Water, which is based on this idea of these like basically Atlanteans, Atlantis is kind of signaled here. See, Atlantis is kind of like America. It sinks because of its corrupt leaders. But in Atlanta, at the time Avatar 2 came out, the environmentalists were protesting the police who were trying to build a training facility in these some 80 acres of forest next to Atlanta. And the environmentalists said, if you chop down these trees, Atlanta will flood. Like Atlanta will sink. The Atlantis will sink. And this was called the Cop City riots, where the cops are actually going against the environmentalists who are throwing rocks and sticks. And their leader gets shot to death. An autopsy show he had bullet holes through the palms of his hands. Like hands up, don't shoot. Like stigmata, you know, a Christ-like martyr. Which perfectly mirrors Avatar 2, where the humans go to Pandora to cut down the forests, to set up their military bases, and they're confronted by the indigenous who do what in defending the trees? They throw rocks and sticks, spears and arrows. So here's the singer of Green Day. He says, I'm being celebrated for working towards environmental justice at a time where I feel it's less achievable now than ever. We're seeing our neighbors being kidnapped, protesters murdered, our rights are being stripped, and our resources to fight the climate crisis are being cut. Protecting our planet and our communities are not a priority for this administration. The theme of a comet hitting the Earth is also connected to James Cameron if you look at Don't Look Up. So Don't Look Up is essentially the Earth is the Titanic, and the tech billionaire CEOs who are greed oriented are telling us that, hey, instead of diverting the comet that's coming to hit us, let's mine the thing. Let's break it apart and mine it, which fails and Earth dies, except for the elite who get on the escape pod. But anyway, that movie parallels this idea of America as a Titanic that's going to sink because of its leadership and because it's hubris, too big to fail or whatnot. And the comet is basically an iceberg in space. Well, it stars Leonardo DiCaprio, who's the face of the Titanic. You know, what's interesting about this is I was recognizing, okay, there's some overlapping here with this particular character. But at the time that Don't Look Up came out, Leonardo DiCaprio had made the news because he had jumped into a frozen lake, I think to save a dog. Let's see if I can find that article. Here it is. Leonardo DiCaprio jumped into the frigid waters of a frozen lake to save his husky dogs, named Jack and Jill, while filming Don't Look Up. But again, Don't Look Up is about a comet coming to kill the Earth, and it's taken to be an allegory for climate change, that the rich are going to get richer and destroy our world in the process because we're ignoring the incoming iceberg. We're rearranging deck chairs on the sinking Titanic. We're ignoring the problem that's going to take us all out. Don't look up. Here's your wrench, Andrea Asher. Yeah, exactly. They have the song American Idiot based on Bush. Tom Anoid says, Greenland 2020 movie says, a family must fight for survival as a planet-destroying comet races to the Earth. Interesting. So the green, though, Greenland, Green Day, the environmental justice theme, Wicked, opposing the fascist, Joker, green hair, revolution against the rich, kill the rich. And why? Because the rich are going to kill us. The rich are the oppressors, simply by virtue of the system that makes them rich, because it's a planet-killing system. Dirk Singh says, I like Green Day's music, hate what they stand for. It's like Neil Young's Insanity. Yeah, I get that. You know, I happen to like a lot of what I watch on Netflix, even though I know it's being used for the purposes of psychological warfare, politics, etc. Jamarin May says, Tim, what are your thoughts on the Lush Memorial Black Pools at Ground Zero? Do you remember at Ground Zero on 9/11, and I think it was the 19th anniversary? Yeah, here it is. A 33-year-old, I think it was the one who fell into a man plunged head first into the 9/11 memorial pool. There's a lot of strange stuff around the 9/11 in terms of the architecture, the rituals around it. A 33-year-old was arrested Monday after jumping into the reflecting pool at the 9/11 memorial. Onlookers horrified. Head first. He broke his leg, apparently. Now, is it true that the phrase break a leg comes from John Wilkes Booth? The phrase break a leg is a theater superstition for good luck, and it's linked to the assassin John Wilkes Booth, who broke his leg jumping from the presidential box after assassinating the president. So he killed him at a theater, and then he ran. There was something, where did he run to? It was like a book depository. There's some interesting mirrors between the JFK assassination and the Lincoln assassination that are worth examining. I know it's kind of apocryphal. I don't know if it's true. For example, Lincoln killed in a Ford theater. JFK killed in a Ford Lincoln. Harrison Ford, born on 7/13, the day Trump was shot at, plays the president shot at a podium in a trailer that came out on 7/12, and he's in a theater. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Harrison Ford, theater, kind of a Lincoln reference. But then Marvel Comics had to change the trailer because it foreshadowed the Trump thing too perfectly and came out the day before. JRGMTY says, I remembered that they lost a nuke in Greenland in the 60s. You know what they call a lost nuke? Okay, here we go. 1968, Thule Air Base B-52 crashed in Greenland. A bomber carrying 4 hydrogen bombs crashed, causing significant radioactive contamination, scattering plutonium. The cleanup was called Operation Crested Ice. Okay, so now we've got ice, radioactive ice, and Greenland in the story here. But what they call a lost nuke is a broken arrow. There's a movie about this. Broken arrow, nuclear weapon accidents. It's a flag word. Unexpected events involving nuclear weapons, accidents, warheads, or missing components. The Pentagon maintains that the United States has experienced how many 32 broken arrow incidents, including the 1980 episode in Damascus, Arkansas. Anybody care to guess? How many broken arrow incidents have there been? Since the 50s, since 1950. Again, these are defined as unexpected events involving nuclear weapons that result in accidental launchings, firings, detonations, thefts, or loss of weapons. To date, 6 of them have not been recovered. Oh, there's one here. April 11, 1950, Kirtland Air Force Base. Aircraft crashed into the mountain on Monsanto Base. Interesting. There's rumors that the Monsanto mountains here are hollow, and there's some kind of underground train systems connected to Los Alamos. I know people who claim that sometimes they feel the ground vibrating. Yeah, so the next broken arrow event will be the 33rd. There have been 32 of these since 1950. Jamirin May says, Vanilla Ice performed Ice Ice Baby at Mike Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, I saw that. And when he was performing that, there were, who was it in the audience that was dancing? Christy Nome. Christy Nome, who's looking like a Gelfin as of late. You know, Gelfins from Gelflings from the Dark Crystal. If you haven't seen these Gelfings, I mean, they're cute. These little puppets. You know, it's Jim Henson. I like the Skeksis a lot more. They look like these demonic penguin things. Like, they're pretty savage, but they're the ones who they harvest the adrenochrome from the Gelflings. But yeah, Christy Nome is looking like a Gelfing. But anyway, she was there dancing to Ice Ice Baby. It's kind of cringe. Kristi Noem's Ice Ice Baby Dance at Mar-a-Lago party has exploded online, along with Stephen Miller. Okay. It drew significant attention and mockery because the officials in charge of the immigration policies, like ICE, decided to dance to a song with ICE in the title. Yeah, obviously this was contrived. Pretty funny. Funny, not funny. It's trolling. And you have to ask yourself, why is the DHS secretary trolling the other side? Why are they mocking the situation, which is a serious situation? I mean, you're talking about no due process. Their attitudes are pretty flippant about this. But at least they got Vanilla Ice and not that other guy, Horatio Blow. Whatever happened to him? Horatio Blow is a MAGA rapper who drives around with a Trump doll in his car. I think he makes his girlfriend sit in the back seat. But his whole thing has been, MAGA. And then he does this video where he's showing a noose. So he's got this like lynching rap video. Here goes. A recent music video by MAGA rapper Blow led to outrage for its graphic portrayal of a lynching. Hang him high at sundown, MAGA artist slammed. I thought that might have been a jump the shark moment. A big tall tree and a short piece of rope, hang him high at sundown. Leave him swinging so folks know you don't mess around in our town. Now, of course, sundown towns were the towns where you couldn't be outside after dark because of the black codes or something like that. And, this kind of reminds me of something else, too. You had Stu Peters walking around with a noose in a video, and he's also a rapper known as Focus. He's formerly a rapper. And then you have Try That in a Small Town by PSYOP country music performer Jason Aldean. He was the guy performing in the Vegas shooting. Well, Try That in a Small Town features a courthouse where lynchings were done, or there was like some famous lynching done in front of it. And so in the video, Try That in a Small Town, Jason Aldean is showing BLM rioters and that courthouse. So it's the same message there. Well, he was called out on it. And you know who defended him? His BFF, Candace Owens. Candace Owens is a friend of Jason Aldean. And generally, you don't go with, guilt by association isn't valid. But when it comes to PSYOPs, when it comes to fake events, guilt by association is actually a thing. There's no way she could be BFFs with Jason Aldean and not be a PSYOP operative. Of course, White Lives Matter. But she's like, no, of course it wasn't about lynching. I'm his friend. I'm like, okay. Well, it specifically was. That's typical, though. That's when I realized, okay, they will gaslight the hell out of you. Yeah, Lady Ice-T got into the anti-ICE. Yeah, I think he has the song Cop Killer. And didn't he did I don't know if he did the lyrics again. Ice-T and Body Count modernized Cop Killer in the wake of the ICE raids. Banned in the USA, the 33rd anniversary of Ice-T pulling his most controversial song from the debut album. That was last summer. Okay, I'm gonna have to look into this one. Okay, here we go. The title Cop Killer is a song that finds Ice-T fantasizing about murdering police officers, and it was born out of frustrations around the beating of Rodney King, which sparked the LA 92 riots. Okay, now let's add on to this. So the 92 riots in LA were started by after the footage of the Rodney King beating got out. Do you know who shot the Rodney King footage? who was hit 33 times, by the way. Well, at the time, James Cameron, James Cameron's been reoccurring in this conversation tonight. James Cameron was filming T2, Terminator 2, at the time. And Terminator 2 is a movie where the cop is the bad guy. You know, this villain as a police officer is kind of a new thing. Well, it's called the Holiday Tape. It's a 9-minute video taken by George Holliday. And so he was filming James Cameron, who at the time was working on that film. And as he's walking home, he films the beating. So James Cameron actually mentions this in an interview recently, how he's like, there's a connection between Terminator 2 and the George Holliday video. The weird, tragic link between Terminator 2 and the LA riots, how James Cameron led to the LA riots. Now, what's intriguing about this as well, and there's a lot of 33 code all over this whole thing. He was beaten for 1 minute, 19 seconds. But what's intriguing about this here is that Avatar 2 specifically connects to the Cop City riots. So Avatar 2, Cop City riots, Atlanta, James Cameron. Well, here we have LA riots about bad cops. And he's connected to it. So that was on 3/3/1991. Rodney King and his friends ran a stop sign. And there was the footage. And here it is. What does this have to do with the guy who made Titanic? And again, the Titanic is a metaphor for the sinking of the West. The one where a police officer made of liquid metal hunts down a small child while Schwarzenegger defends him. It's a sequel to the first one that came out in 1984. Okay, but here's the thing. The film was shot around LA County for a period of 171 days. And outside the bar, people were watching the sight of the Terminator getting on a motorcycle and riding away. Amongst the onlookers was George Holliday, a plumber who had an 8mm Handycam. So he was filming the filming of Terminator 2 so he could show his friends the new movie being filmed. As he's going down to his apartment, he sees the Rodney King arrest. And so the same tape that has the Terminator production on it goes right into the Rodney King. So, you know, it's this continuity thing. If the tape hadn't happened, would any of this have happened? And so you see this direct connection between this stuff. So it says Rodney King is somewhat more important when it comes to the zeitgeist of the 90s, just as the death of George Floyd will be a major cultural event viewed from the future. Fascinating. All of this may not have occurred had James Cameron not wanted to make a sequel to the Terminator 2 movie. And as a side note, why was the villain of T2 made to look like a police officer? And Cameron said, quote, "The truth is, many officers view themselves as superior to those who aren't police." Fascinating. The non-cop attitude allows them to engage in shocking acts of violence while wearing the uniform that's meant to instill trust and security. So there's a statement built into this whole thing in the Terminator movie that's actually mirrored in the theme of the LA riots. So when I talk about these meta-scripters, I would argue that James Cameron is not only involved in predictive programming for 9/11, which is apparent in the Titanic movie. It's apparent in Terminator 2. It's apparent in the Ghost in the Abyss documentary he was filming on 9/11 at the site of the sunken Titanic. But that these directors are also recruited for the psyops themselves. Like Stanley Kubrick directed the JFK assassination hoax. He directed Apollo 11, directed 9/11. His directorship also is reflected in 2020's COVID-19 thing. He wasn't alive for that. But there are many directors who are contributors to these PSYOP events. And James Cameron is a major league metascripter. And you can see his fingerprints all over Cop City and the LA riots if you look at the predictive and concurrent programming for these things. Jamarin May says, did you watch Eagle Eye about sentient AI takeover? I haven't yet. You know, okay, we need to do a mind map, a thread in our great deconstruction on Hell 9000, and Otto from Wall-E, then Ollie from the 100. Every example we can find of AI taking over government. Okay, that's another one. Terminator 2. It's about Skynet. The Terminator is about Skynet, which is like global AI. And then we were talking about Gaia, the global AI, which, again, the reoccurring theme here is the hive mind. The robots taking over. And why were the robots coming back to kill us? I think it had to do with environmentalism. The robot wars, I think there was some kind of climate change messaging in there, which is like pretty consistent. Terminator 2, Judgment Day, was triggered by Skynet's self-awareness leading to a nuclear apocalypse and a desolate, cold nuclear winter where survivors fought machines. A future Arnold Schwarzenegger now links to real-world threats. This is kind of interesting because the Matrix movie is based on this thing called Dark Storm, where they blotted out the sun so the solar-powered robots could be defeated, and it didn't work. The scene from Terminator 2 Judgment Day is considered the most realistic depiction of a nuclear explosion in any movie. That's also very significant given the context of today. Again, Judgment Day refers to the day the artificial intelligence becomes self-aware and declares nuclear war on the United States. Now, what day is Judgment Day? What is the actual date? I remember reading about it. Judgment Day occurs on August 29th, 1997. But on August 4th, it launches nuclear missiles at Russia to incite a counterattack. August 4th. There's so much we can go into here. It goes pretty deep with James Cameron. I'm looking forward to mind mapping the work of James Cameron as it relates to the Cop City, Avatar 2, and of course Titanic, 9/11, and LA riots and George Holiday's thing with the anti-cop motif, which is prevalent in Avatar 2. Like Avatar 2 is basically the cops are the bad guy. These Marines, these cops, these soldiers, Cop City, and they're seen as defenders of the system that's destroying the planet. Thus, the symbol of the sinking Titanic being, relevant here. And the sinking of the Titanic, the sinking of the Twin Towers, there's some common themes here that are reinforced. We're going to get into all the stuff in detail in our thorough breakdown of these fictional events and then who's behind them. So what we're offering here that you don't really see in conspiracies in general are we can name names. The hierarchy enslaving you. People are like, well, who is it? Is it the Jesuits? Is it Skull and Bones? There's all kinds of conjecture as to like who's behind this stuff. And it's like, well, we're naming names of directors who are directly involved or 1 degree separated from each of these events. Okay, let's see. Lean Dion says the Creator movie is in the future where man blames a deified AI after they nuke LA. This is good info. So what we're doing, because look, we've been doing this for a long time. We've amassed a great deal of research, a lot of interesting connections. So now we're consolidating it, and I'm basically data dumping all these points, all these links into these threads in this Discord server. And then about every couple of weeks, I'm going to go through these threads and put the content into a synopsis, largely using AI, I'm going to use Perplexity to source every single data point. We're going to mind map it, and then we're going to put it into a chronology, essentially an encyclopedia of the fake events of the last 100 years. And all of the predictive programming that bolster the PSYOPs will be included along with the directors. So we're naming names of these sellouts who work for the PSYOP entertainment complex who have zero plausible deniability because it's a consistent facet of their work. Jameron May says transcendence is required viewing material. And that's the one with Johnny Depp, right? Now, as far as world stage actors, Johnny Depp has made some interesting references to John Wilkes Booth, taking out a president. He's also got the thing with hats. Yeah, copacetic. Green Day will open at the Super Bowl, Bunny at halftime, and Bunny's anti-ice. Yeah, and they put Bad Bunny in there way before this Renee Good thing. Just like the Wicked movie, For Good, was way before it accelerated. But Bad Bunny is 100% a provocation. And this has been whined about since it was first announced. Like, oh, he doesn't speak English. He said he was afraid to tour in America because of ice. So Green Day, who's anti-ice, Bad Bunny, anti-ice, at the most American event of the year. Who's playing? Who's in the Super Bowl? Still to be determined, according to us. Like, we're like, oh, it's to be determined. We don't know yet. Oh, well, I'm pretty sure the people who own the thing know. I mean, I don't know how compartmentalized it is, but what's the official lineup? Yeah, but this Green Day inclusion is very consistent with what we've been talking about. Super Bowl 60, Santa Clara, California. Green Day for the opening ceremony. Bad Bunny headlining the halftime show in the Bay Area. This should be very intriguing. Jameron May says it's the odd juxtaposition between the area called Greenland being full of ice. Yeah, exactly. What is with the symbolism here? Greenland, ice, Greenland's capital, nuke. And then the 1968 incident, the Broken Arrow, where they got a bunch of radioactive material all over the ice. And then the Green Day album has the nuke on it and a blimp. And so there's a movie called, I think it's called Black September. It's a 1970, Black Sunday. Yeah, Black Sunday. And so Black Sunday, it's a 1977 movie directed by, I believe it's John Frankenheimer. Yeah, this is good. So Black Sunday, they use a blimp over the Super Bowl and the president's there, but they use a blimp to attack the Super Bowl. This is Black Sunday, a 1977. And okay, now the terrorist group is called Black September. Now, the interesting thing about this to me right now is that the director, John Frankenheimer, is the guy that drove RFK to the Ambassador Hotel where he was killed by a mind-controlled assassin. And John Frankenheimer directed The Manchurian Candidate about the mind-controlled assassin. John Frankenheimer, known for his social drama, action, suspense pictures, died in 2002. Now, I'm bringing him up, and I'm bringing this up because the cover of Green Day's album Dookie has a nuke and a blimp in it. Copaesthetic says Seattle is still in. Interesting. June 5th, 1968, director John Frankenheimer drives his friend, Senator Robert Kennedy, to the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles, where, of course, he got killed. Now, I'm thinking here, and I'm going to do a deeper dive onto this. Yeah, director John Frankenheimer and President JFK had a mutual interest in political thrillers. JFK admired the Manchurian Candidate and supported his film 7 Days in May, a political conspiracy story about a military coup. And JFK granted this guy access to the White House for filming it. He said it was a warning to the nation about military extremism during the Cold War. So this director was close with the Kennedys. Now, if you look at the significance of the Manchurian Candidate in all of this, well, the Manchurian Candidate has become essentially the theme behind every one of these assassins. Oh, they're all patsies. They're all mind controlled. They're all on SSRIs, therefore under the control of some psychiatrist. And that was a 1962 film. So JFK would have seen it. And the death of RFK was just a couple of months after MLK. Jamarian May says, Eagle Eye also has Shia LaBeouf, who is responsible for that He Will Not Divide Us anti-Trump movement. Now, okay, so Shia LaBeouf was also in Francis Ford Coppola's movie, Megalopolis, about Make America Great Again, Megalon, about Megalon being destroyed by a Russian satellite, about this new 9/11. Well, he's in it, and he's crucified upside down in front of a $100 bill, a big $100 bill. And the significance there is the number 100 and the $100 bill have been part of the code in the build-up to this nuke scenario hitting Seattle. So I'm going to put him on my list, another actor to. So we're documenting, we're actually doing studies on every director, every actor that is a part of the PSYOP reinforcement content, the predictive programming. Fascinating. A lot of great intel tonight. Can't wait to open up phones. It won't be long here. I'm going to be getting a 1-800 number established. And so this 1-800 number, and I think you'll like this, caller queue, you can call in, listen on the phone while waiting to be heard, but it will also be there 24/7 to take voicemails. So you can leave us voicemails to play online. Okay, now, so Shia LaBeouf was born on June 11th. Fascinating. There's just links here to explore that further solidify this narrative of the incoming nuke event, the EMP. But anyway, this Green Day thing seems to be building up. So yeah, I'll take a look at Eagle Eye, put that on my list. I've got a list of a few here to go into now. I'm mostly interested in looking at concurrent programming. I mean, I do my homework. I'll go back and look at stuff from the past, but I'm trying to get the most contemporary examples of programming to get an idea of what's to come. What's around the next corner here? What's the next plot twist? So aliens have been big, hive mind, and the aliens and the nuke AI hive mind have been reoccurring themes. So then we have, and I opened up with this today, Tucker Carlson saying that nukes are demonic. Nukes are, I guess, created by the same entities that invaded his bedroom and scratched him up, and he doesn't care if we don't believe him. If you're on my Substack, you received a video. I was just going over my recent whiteboard. So I'm going to be releasing a couple of whiteboard videos here. I'm consolidating all my graphics. And the one that I'm going to be discussing on this next video I'm going to upload will be available as a PDF. And I've been creating some of these before. I've already done this. I'll put a link, in fact, in the chat to a tweet of mine where I have a diagram of the programmers, the world stage closed system, and then I have Normieville, Trutherville, and Woketown. So there's a link there if you want to follow me on Twitter. And the reason why I'm emphasizing diagrams and infographics is that we're describing an invisible prison. And the people don't see it because it's invisible. But to conceptualize it, you have to recognize it as a model. If you don't know that you have a model, that you have an internalized simulation that filters your experience, if you don't know you're in the model, it just means that you're so immersed in it that you don't recognize that the model is not the territory. There's your model of it, then there's the real thing. There's a discrepancy. And the purpose of philosophy, of a scientific methodology, of skepticism, of reason and logic, is to diminish the discrepancy between what is perceived and what is internalized. Well, the problem is media gets between us and the world, and it distorts it. It bends the news, it bends history. And the distortion between real and fake, the divergence, is what we're focusing on, because they've merged real and fake and they've created a hyper reality, a bubble for the masses to live within. And we're here outside the bubble. And the people in the bubble don't know it. And they don't like being told that they're in a bubble. They want to say you are. And it's like, well, actually, no, we're not. They have a perspective that keeps them in that particular paradigm. And I've had some say to me, I think you're closed-minded to the fact that maybe they're not lying. I'm like, no, you got it backwards. If your perspective is the world stage friendly perspective, it's a closed system of information. If it's a closed system, it means it's not inclusive of certain other salient facts. If it's a closed system, your opinions are therefore closed-minded by definition. We are the open-minded ones. We're the ones who haven't fallen for the settled journalism, carved in stone, can't question these events. All right, well, I appreciate all the comments and think tank participation. This is only going to get better as we refine our approach, and I'm working diligently on this. I have this new book out, the Handbook for the Recently Deprogrammed, and I'm going to promote it with these whiteboards. And I'm basically setting up a number of these graphics as a way to take this complex notion and simplify it so we can engage people in this conversation who are outside of it. And the idea isn't to change their minds, but it's to reach those who've already deprogrammed sufficiently enough that they can make the rest of the leap. It makes a difference. It matters. It matters if you're off world stage versus on world stage. There are qualitative differences in how you interpret information, and there's a quality of life difference. The early skeptics recognized that unplugging from automatically believing what you can't verify leads to peace of mind. You can exit the mind war, and you can achieve peace of mind regarding the world as it's presented. You can step out of reactivity. You can break free of your trauma-induced mind control, your MK Ultra indoctrination. You can inoculate yourself against mind viruses. This is the cure for mind aids, for MAIDs, for a totally compromised mental immune system that is porous and way too receptive to propaganda ideas that are inherently self-destructive, because if you're engaged in the psi war, at a very minimum, it's increasing your levels of stress, it's increasing your perception of threats, and it makes you susceptible to demagogues. Jamarin May says they're obsessed with twins and digital twins. They study how to control, manipulate real twins at the Minnesota Center for Twin and Family Research at University of Minnesota, Twin Cities. Fascinating. There was a lot with the Twin Cities connected to the Twin Towers, which we talked about. The 8 minutes and 46 seconds of George Floyd's asphyxiation connects to 8:46 a.m. when 9/11 started. And the sun set in the Twin Cities that day, May 25th, 2020 at 8:46. The twin thing was pretty big. And then George Floyd's twin, Steven Jackson, comes out on the news as basketball player. They killed my twin. So again, I don't know exactly what it all means, but the twin thing has been huge for a long time. I thought it might have to do with the twin pillars, the black and white poles, the duality, and the twins of the, like, in an alchemical sense, the conscious and subconscious, the solar, the lunar, the movie screen, and then the real world as portrayed by the news, these twin timelines that are merged. I'm not quite sure if that's what it is, but I thought the twin might have to do with this splitting of reality, or this alternate versions that is merged with this one. But yeah, the twin thing has been very consistent for a long time. We'll have to also, because we're mapping out movies as they relate to the fake events, the directors that are involved, but also the symbolism, the numbers, which we've done a lot of mind map work on, and the colors in particular. In fact, I have a mind map already that I have to access that has to do with green and pines, like twin pine malls, as this was related to a lot of events. But yeah, we've seen this before. The number 42 has consistently been associated with the same exact themes, like blackouts, for example. But it's also been connected with the civil rights psyops, the Black Lives Matter psyops, and black itself. So black and white, 42, darkness, black, 33, associated with fire, ascension, rising, and light. So I kind of thought that this twin thing could be a reference to this duality, this splitting of two into two. All right, we'll continue this conversation tomorrow. I'm going to work on the whiteboards, and I'll be in the Discord voice whenever I'm working on the great deconstruction. So if you want to get into that, go to ips.monster, and you'll find a link there for the Discord server. And you're also going to find other relevant links, and the most recent replays will be uploaded there as well. All right, thank you for your time and attention and comments and support. This is the early part of the new phase, auto hoax accelerationism, and we're just amalgamating all of our best information and preparing this stuff to be essentially weaponized. There has to be a confrontation. The off-world stage is going to invade the world stage in the near future. We just have to have our foundation set, our philosophical framework codified, and we all have to be on the same sheet. In other words, the off-world stage perspective has to be a distinct and separate demographic, and we have to highlight those distinctions. That's the reason why I've gone so hard against chemtrails, Mandela effects, QAnon, and all this other stuff. You have to break away from the red pill manufactured alt media, totally controlled, fake, anti-establishment. We have to really make the break. And anybody still clinging to that will be very obviously standing up for the other side. If they're on the wrong side of the screen, and we need to make that distinction. A lot of people will actually find the off-world stage more palatable when they realize that they have no representation in what is in effect a dual